Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Countless Vlogcast. I'm your host, Justin Rich. My guest today is PD Oliva. How are you?
I'm great, Justin. How are you?
PD Oliva slash Paul, right? First name is Paul, right? Correct?
Correct. Paul Dominic Oliva. So I
All
like
right,
the
great. What
PD.
a great name. All right, so tell us a little about yourself.
All right. So I am a sci-fi and horror author, and I'm a retired, semi-retired hypnotist. I have a new book series coming out, dystopian sci-fi, called The Rose. And I live in sunny South Florida, although it's not sunny right now. We got clouds out there and a big storm coming.
So, being a hypnotist, has it affected your books at all, too? Have you ever written a book about being a hypnotist, or has it influenced your writing at all?
It's definitely influenced my writing as far as things like how the brain works and some other practices, spiritual practices that come along with it. I've been thinking about writing a series called The Therapist, like a mystery, supernatural,
Like
paranormal.
a fictional type of tale?
Definitely fiction.
Mm.
Definitely fiction.
Mm.
I enjoy my fiction.
So, how did you come into the genre of like writing fiction?
All right, so I've been writing since I was about knee high to a grasshopper, since I was a kid. It's always been either like dark fantasy or sci-fi or horror. I've also written some literary or supernatural books that have been published as well, but sci-fi and horror, they get my gut. They allow the imagination to just run wild, and there's no limits to it.
So, what's your recent book called, and how did you come about to? What was that process like?
Okay, so the most recent book, here you go, got it right here for you, The Rose. All right, volume one. It's the first book in a series of 7 planned books that I have. And it's been a kind of a thought in my head for about the last 10 years. And it started off there was 3 other books that I was writing, 3 other different series, and I kind of combined little elements of each one of those into this book or this series. And the process was I was writing a trilogy called the Indigo Trials, and I needed a superpower. So I came up with a superpower, which is called the Rose, which is a alchemy practice that you could change chemical structures at your whim with your mind, move objects with your mind, and suspend gravity. So I wanted to take that superpower and kind of do like a prequel to it, a bit of a short story, which started off as The Rose. And the book just kept coming. And we were having so much fun. The characters kept evolving and getting more in depth. There was so much more to their story that wanted to be told for each of the characters that it turned out to be a full length novel. And not only a full length novel, but we're going to do 2 volumes on this. And then we're going to go to the original trilogy that I had been writing called The Indigo Trials. And then there's 2 books after that as well, which kind of revolve around time travel and a guy named Robin Winter, who is introduced in this book, but he's more of a sub character or supporting character.
So, when you're writing your stories with like a trilogy kind of thing, do you do a character building first? You do world building first, or do you mix the two at the same time?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Do you mix the worlds together, or do you create the characters first, the world first?
Okay, so kind of both. They're both evolving. So the whole series takes place after World War III. So with The Rose begins at the tail end, as soon as World War III ends and the treaty is signed. And the Indigo Trials is going to take place years later, years after that. However, as far as like with the world building, it's dystopian. So what you're going to see is that dystopian society, in a strange way, evolve into being more of a dystopian society, more of a controlled atmosphere later on in those books and in the Indigo Trials. So definitely more character depth at this point going on with the story. And not only that, because there's at this point in the book with The Rose, aliens are still not known to be on this earth at this point. They're kind of coming out, and the main alien species I came up with they're called the Drox, and they are a species of alien vampires. So what you get a lot of in this book is the depth that goes into the lore and the history behind those alien vampires, who are genetic hybrids of draconian alien lizards and cobra snakes. And they've been living underground. They've been here on Earth for a very long period of time as well. So the first book delves into that, gives you a lot of that nice, good history. And then that'll evolve over time as well with different alien species and, of course, the humans in there too. Can't forget our human beings either. And what else? There's also a lot of ancient alien type of theories in the book as well, and that'll come throughout the course of the series.
So when you're writing, are you more of a pantser or a plotter when you're writing? Because you seem like they have a lot of different stories going on at once. So would you consider yourself a plotter or pantser?
Okay, so definitely a little bit of both. Now, what I do is when the story first comes in, the seed is first planted, I'll start taking notes. Sometimes I'll even open up a Word document and take notes in that Word document. As other little ideas come up, I'll send emails to myself, put them in a nice little folder just for that book or that story or that series. I've even I got a nice good whiteboard that I've been writing on recently as well to take in little notes. What I found is when I sit down to actually start writing the story, I never actually look at my notes. Maybe once in a blue moon, but quite rare. I just let the story kind of unfold. I know the beginning, I know the general gist of where everything is going, but sometimes that even changes too. So a little bit of a both, but I'd say more of a pantser.
So a two-part question. In terms of your audience, who is your audience you target? And when you're writing the story, do you think about the audience too? With the feedback from so far from your books, have they gotten what you're trying to say, your message?
Okay, all right. So let's start. As far as I'll start with feedback. This is the last one that's on the one. The feedback has been excellent so far. Not only between editorial reviews, but other fellow authors, beta readers, and just some general, because I've been doing a lot of giveaways too. General audience, as far as people who love sci-fi, the feedback has been stellar. It's been awesome. Quite happy for the book for that. Now, as far as who the audience is, like who the target is, obviously this book is dystopian, so you gotta like dystopian, you gotta like science fiction and sci-fi. So that's your general audience that I'm playing towards. But then on the flip side too, they're kind of like niche markets. People like vampire books, a little bit of horror as well. But people like vampires, taking vampires and turning them into aliens or alien vampires kind of changes the whole concept, changes the whole lore behind what vampires are. So far, the feedback has been great as far as people who are enjoying these alien vampires. I mean, they're sophisticated, they're intelligent, they're organized, they're well put together, and of course, they have their issues just like human beings as well. But having that and giving that over to, obviously, I'm a big vampire fan as well. So people who enjoy vampire books, to hear that they're enjoying the different type of species of aliens in this book is just absolutely stellar. I love that. And then a really carved out niche market would be ancient alien theorists. So when I'm writing the book and I'm doing like maybe a Robert Morningstar type of theory behind the book, the Akashic Record, 12 Planet, things like that. If you're an ancient alien theorist or enthusiast and you love ancient aliens, you'll be able to pick that out as well. And I wanted to make sure I got that right in the book and throughout this series as well. Because ancient alien theorists like ourselves we're a bit fanatical, and we like our theories and we like our lore to be presented accurately.
Yes. It's a great addition too. So who are some of your influences in terms of writing and other authors, and how do they affect your writing?
Okay, so I've had a lot of influences. I've been, aging myself here. Yeah, I'm 45 years old. So when I was a kid, my dad used to have the old comic books, and not only old comic books, but old Pulp Fiction magazines, Weird Tales, Amazing Stories, which is Pulp Fiction is where writers like L. Ron Hubbard came from, Ray Bradbury came from, H.P. Lovecraft. They came from those old Pulp Fiction magazines. And so he had a bunch of them. I wish he had not sold them. They'd probably be really cool to have right now, part of a collection. So when I was a kid, I was always engrossed in those types of stories. And then also H.G. Wells. I keep going. Dune, Lord of the Rings, Ender's Game. The list goes on and on. Of course, I also grew up in the Star Wars era, the original trilogy, and Empire Strikes Back is still my favorite. And then keep moving on, like Matrix movies. Definitely Matrix movies, John Carpenter movies, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live, The Thing, movies like that, which are kind of inspired by the Pulp Fiction era as well. And then moving forward, like current authors, or say the last like 10 years or so. Others like Blake Crouch, who's an amazing author. His book Recursion and then Dark Matter are absolutely stellar. They like raise the bar. V.E. Schwab, her Vicious and then Vengeful was phenomenal. I enjoyed reading those as well. John Connolly. John Connolly writes a thriller series, the Charlie Parker series, and he's very poetic. I love his prose. It really hits the nail on the head every time. And then your classic Clive Barker, Stephen King type of novels. So well read. I love it. Those are my influences. They go back to Edgar Allan Poe.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I see like how you influence your worlds too. Like you very like get deep into your worlds too with like your character building too, and like your worlds too. Like all your influences like Stephen King, Lord of the Rings. So it's like a whole bunch of like different genres too. But you're able to like mix them too with your writing, which is awesome.
Back. I love it. It's quite fun. It's great for me to write as I'm writing it, and I hope it's great for the reader as well.
So during this time, like the pandemic too, has it affected your creativity in a positive way or like negative way, or would you say it was a mixed bag for you?
Creativity during the pandemic definitely, I would say, raised. Went up. So I'm currently writing a horror novel. I love like a horror thriller, a little bit of comedy in there. Humor is always a good thing when you're writing horror, but it's based on, or kind of influenced by the old Grindhouse movies, B-rated slasher films, and then the Pulp Fiction as well, kind of like cosmic horror. So writing that, being in the pandemic, was absolutely phenomenal for creativity. And also on the flip side, when I say semi-retired hypnotist, I say semi-retired because I started taking less responsibility in that private practice a few years ago. Me and my wife have. But during the pandemic, a friend of mine owns a treatment center for substance abuse, mental health. And because of the pandemic, he was losing people. So he asked me to come in and fill in and see some of his patients and just help them obviously through what they were going through, because they were all locked in. And a locked-in person who is suffering from trauma, PTSD, and addiction, well, they need relief. So I guess I was an essential worker during the time. But as I would drive to and from, no one was on the street, completely bare, completely empty, and it felt dystopian. So I think that creativity actually, that quarantine and that part of it actually helped with the creativity to put into this new book and then future books as well.
It's awesome. Sounds like a Twilight Zone episode where the guy's like alone in the world too, but he's just like maybe able to make it out.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, I didn't ask you before too. Are you self-published or you have a publisher? And what made you choose either or that?
Okay, all right. So self-published. My publisher is Quillen Birch Publishing, and they're a very small, traditional, independent publisher that's here in South Florida. So I would say it's still independent publishing. What made me choose that? Well, I think more than a few things, actually. Number one, my cousin has worked in traditional publishing for a long period of time, and I hear stories, put it that way. So I don't like anybody taking what I'm writing or taking what I'm putting out there and trying to change the overall arc or message. I like to have that control. I look at my stories and my books kind of like my children or my babies, and I don't want anybody messing with the message or the gist that's going on there. So I like not only the creativity, but having the control of what I'm looking to do with indie publishing. It seems to fit me better. I've also been waiting, like all my life, waiting for for independent publishing to kind of come to fruition, and it has over the last decade or so. Since ebooks and Amazon publishing and everything like that, better than the old vanity presses, which were always looked at quite negatively, and for obvious reasons back then. But since then, indie publishing has really taken off, and it reminds me of the pulp fiction era from the 1910s, really took off in the 1920s and 1950s, where writers were just out and they were pumping out stories and pumping out those magazines. And it's kind of reflective of what we have here with so many fantasy and sci-fi authors and horror authors, and keep going with indie publishing, but everything's there. It's reflective of that era 100 years ago. I kind of find that amazing. History does repeat itself.
So if you could give advice out to the young authors starting out and authors struggling, if you can, some positive words, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, you should know already, keep writing and keep reading. Those are the two main things. I would suggest take the last year of books that you've read, and if you haven't read a lot, you need to up that game. But then take the last 5 years of books that you read and find out which genres really touched you. And I would say try to write in that genre. But I think what's most important, be true to yourself and find out what works for you and what will fit your personality. If you're not a social media person, if you're not a Facebook person or a Twitter person, if you're not into social media, then you need to find a different niche for yourself. Not to say not to do those things, but let's try to master something a little bit different for you. So find out what works for you and what fits your personality, and something that that you're going to enjoy doing. And it'll come from there. Do the next right thing.
Awesome. So now's your time to plug yourself, social media, websites, project coming up, all that.
Yeah, definitely. Let's okay, so today, actually by tomorrow, is the last time that we can, or anybody can, purchase the ebook for 99 cents. So it's currently on sale. As of that changes after tomorrow. So definitely get to Amazon.com, PD Oliva, The Rose Volume 1. Purchase for 99 cents. It's always a good thing. Even more than that, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram and all that fun stuff, but go to pdoliva.com. It's right there in your little, where is it?
There it is.
There it is. Follow the bouncing ball. pdoliva.com and sign up for my newsletter. I love my newsletter. That's like my main thing. So I'll be doing a giveaway soon within the month of September. So I'll be giving away some nice hardcovers. I'm a hardcover guy. I'm old school. I do love reading ebooks, but I definitely prefer my hardcover. So I'll be giving away more than a few hardcovers and a few other prizes as well. And then there's always discounts, always fun stuff. I enjoy writing blogs as well. And yeah, sign up for the newsletter. Those are the best. That's the best way to reach me.
Wow, it's fun. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story, even through a thunderstorm coming up. So
it's all right.
It was perfect, man. It worked out perfectly.
That it did. Thank you, Justin. It's great being here.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. So make sure you guys subscribe to Countless Vlogcast on YouTube. Make sure you guys follow Paul on his website, pdoliva.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good day, guys.